Hey guys, so today I'm going to teach you how to be an awesome dental hygiene temp. So my name is Natalie Barton and I graduated in 2007 as a dental hygienist out in California. I currently live in Colorado. When I graduated, it was the beginning of the Great Recession, and everybody was firing their hygienists and hiring either temps or doing cleanings themselves. There was no work where you could work like full-time, and I graduated with about $100,000 in debt. So I needed to find full-time work. This is really all that I could do. So today we're going to go over the benefits and the drawbacks of hygiene temping, what you can bring with you, and what to know when you get in the office, the questions you need to ask, and how to convince your patients that you're awesome and you've been there forever.
What was the name of that gal that's temping for us today? Was it Melissa?
I think Rachel.
Or it was Valerie?
Hey, Tim!
Hey, I'm Natalie. I'm your dental hygiene temp today. Okay. So a good rule of thumb for hygiene temping is always have a name tag with you, or make one out of tape. They will expect you to learn everybody's name in the office, even if there's like 10 people in the 5 minutes that you've been there, but they will not remember your name, even though there's only one of you. So I went online when I was temping and I made myself this, and I highly recommend doing something similar. Just write yourself a little name tag, slap it on every day, throw it in your bag so you've got it, so you're not Valerie or I don't know. I ended up being everything including hey you, so just something you keep in mind. So a benefit to dental hygiene temping is you are paid every day. You get to walk out of there with a daily check. And that's a really fun feeling. To walk out with money in hand every day is really exciting. So dental hygienists actually make higher pay when they temp, at least here in Colorado. And the closer you get to the bigger cities, the more you're going to make per hour. As a temp, you can pick your work days. You can say, you know what, I only want to work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or I want to work Fridays and Mondays. I want to work, you know, the whole week. I want to work 5 days a week. You can do that. So it's really nice to be able to just set your schedule, and you can change it at any time too, which you can't do in an office job. So as a hygiene temp, you see a huge variety of offices. When I started, I saw everything from developing dip tanks, where you're doing developing tanks. You take your film and you stick it in the developer, and then the water, and then the fixer, and the water, and then you run up and down the hallway and you dry it off, and the dentist is like, where's the film? You're like, it's coming, it's coming. To, of course, the newest and best of the digital sensors. I've walked into offices where there were marble columns and gold, and I've walked into offices where it was filthy and everything was worn out and everything was 50 years old. So you see everything. You get to know all the dental programs, you get to know all the x-ray programs, you get to know tons of different offices and settings, and what do you want to do with your office when you have it someday. Who do you want to work for? You get a good idea for what kinds of dentists and offices you fit with. Do you want to be perio? Do you want to do general? Do you want to work in a pedo office? You learn all of that because you've done it all. Another big benefit is, I kind of mentioned it already, but it's you get to really get to know your own style. You've used every type of prophy paste there is, and all the different prophy angles, and all the different computer programs, and all etc. And you learn what you like, and in the back of your mind you go, okay, when I have my office, I'm going to decorate it like this. When I have my own patients, I want to use these products on them. And it's really helpful for solidifying you in what your likes and dislikes are as far as everything that goes on in a dental office. Okay, so what are some of the drawbacks to dental hygiene temping? I would say the way you do it could be one of them. There are several ways of doing hygiene temping now. You can join an agency, where you are under a contract, you can pass around your resume and say, you know what, if you ever need a temp, give me a call. And there's now an app that you can sign up with and use that and get contacted through that, which is pretty cool. I think if I would temp again, that's probably the direction I would go. Although now I've been to enough offices in my life that I could probably just pass out my resume and be like, hey, remember me? I worked for you 5 years ago, whatever. Get work that way. So I ended up going the temp agency route, and I would not recommend that in that you are under a contract. If you find an office that you like and they want to hire you, you can't actually work for them until they pay a finder's fee to the agency. Also, there's a non-compete in your contract that says if you quit working for the agency, you are not allowed to work for these other dentists for a year unless they've paid your finder's fee. And you cannot start your own agency either, as most of them will do that as well. So I would probably these days either go the app route or just hand out my resume versus going through the temp agency. So another drawback to dental hygiene temping is you have no life. My sisters would ask me, so hey, what are you doing next Wednesday at noon? We want to go to the zoo. Cool. Call me to next Wednesday at 10 a.m. and I'll tell you. So when I was on call for the agency, it was from essentially 5 p.m. the day before till 10 a.m. the day of. They could call me anytime in there to hire me for a job. So I had my life run for me very much my first 2 years of temping, and I think if I, again, would do that again, if I went back to the temp agency, I'd be like, you know what, I'm only working for you these days in a month or these days in a week. And by the way, I'm going to take this and off, and if you want to yell at me, that's fine. I don't care because I'm not working. But I didn't do that back then, so that was a drawback. Another drawback is there is some abuse, and you do get blamed by offices for like stealing stuff or breaking stuff, even if it had nothing to do with you. Classic example of this, I had an office that called my boss after I left and was absolutely convinced I had stolen a handpiece. And they said, she took one of our high-speed handpieces. And I'm like, well, what would I do with a high-speed? I'm a hygienist. What am I going to do with that? I was really ticked that, being an incredibly honest and ethical person, that they would do that. They called her back. They didn't call me, but they called her back the next day. They say they'd found it in the trash, and one of their assistants had accidentally thrown it out. So it wasn't me, but because you're the new person, you will get blamed for stuff. So just prepare yourself, be as honest as you can be, and, just go, whatever, it wasn't me. Another drawback for me was the fact you never get to know these patients. You're there a day. The longest I was at an office temping was actually 9 months, which was pretty cool. I was filling in for a girl who was an assistant, had gone to hygiene school. She was just about to finish. The girl that had been replacing her had gotten fired for something. And so they needed somebody for like 9 months until she had passed her boards. And I got to do that job. But typically it was one day in, one day out, and you never got to follow up with these cases. Did you do a good job that day? Or that conversation you had, did that make an impact in their life? Or they got a new puppy, how's it doing? Like, you don't get to know your patients at all when you temp, which was disappointing to me. Sometimes it's good because there are patients that you're like, they're back in the schedule today. Yay. And then there's patients where you're like, I can't wait to see this friend. I'm so excited they're going to be here in an hour. It's pluses and minuses. Probably the final two drawbacks for me was, one, I am an introvert, and it's exhausting being a temp because you're having to really put yourself out there. Like, you don't have the comfort of knowing at least the people around you and kind of knowing the patients when they're coming in, at least, after you've been there a while. Because it's so new. A little part of me was like in the back room crying every day going, why are we doing this to ourselves? So that was definitely a drawback. And then you just have the daily unknown. Like, you never know what you're walking into. I have worked in offices where you walk into the lobby and they have marble pillars in the lobby with like gold filigree in it. Or I've worked in offices where there are spiders crawling all over the floors and the instruments are so old, they've just been worn down to needles. You can't sharpen them anymore. you can't use them at all. It's like trying to clean teeth with chopsticks. It's terrible. So you never know what you're gonna end up with, which is kind of a benefit too, but we talked about that already. So the last drawback that I would say is actually pretty major is you're having to pay your own taxes. And keeping track of 30, 45, 75 W-2s for the end of the year can get really complicated. I mean, if you're super, super organized, it's not gonna be, but it's still a pain in the butt to fill all those out at the end of the year. I guess I would recommend, I did them myself with TurboTax. I guess I would recommend taking it somewhere maybe and paying somebody else to do it. It wasn't like there was a lot to do because at the point I was not investing, I wasn't married, I didn't have a house. So, I mean, it was still easy, but it was a lot of work and it would take me a couple of days to get it done. So yeah, taxes are fun. So these are the 10 things that I brought with me when I was doing dental hygiene temping. So when I first started temping, I would carry around this. FYI, this is excessive. I have everything in here from 4x4s to 2x2s to lidocaine to sharpening oil to disclosing solution. Most of the stuff's expired now, just so you know. And then of course in the bottom half my Cavitron would fit, and I'd throw some instrument packets in there. I realized thankfully fairly quickly that this was a little excessive, so I will show you the 10 things that I ended up actually taking with me on my hygiene days. So number one was a system. I came up with a system where I would put everything that I was using for that day in a particular order no matter what office I was in. So if I'd gone through the charts and looked at sticky notes, I had those all laid out someplace. I had my mask in a certain place, I had my glasses in a certain place because I didn't actually have loupes back then. And I had a system of how I would set up the room just so I was super familiar with it, and there wasn't this like confusion every time you went into a new office, because most hygienists put their stuff in the same place. Sometimes they don't, but for me to know where my stuff was really key. So another thing to bring to dental temping is flexibility. Make sure you are super flexible for your day as a temp, because you never know what's going to happen. Okay, so let's go over some things to ask when you first walk in. I suppose the first thing would be, where's my room going to be today? That's good to know. Where is the front office? Where is the sterilization? And then you're gonna hopefully have somebody walk you through the computer program, the x-rays, how does the doctor like to be called for the exam? That can vary very much between offices. How does the dentist want you to diagnose prior to him getting there, or does he want to just sit there and be meek and mild and not say anything? These are all things you really should know in your first 15 minutes of walking in the door. And a lot of times they give you can come maybe a half hour early. You won't be able to get in before that. Usually it's about 15 minutes. So you have to learn to be very efficient very quickly. So sterilization specifically, where is it? How do they do it? You'd think it'd be universal. It's not. So make sure there's nothing specific that they do that you're not used to. And then same deal as far as, are they using pouches? Are they using packs? Do they, is everything super automated where they wave their hand and things open? Or are you gonna have to get in there with your elbows and your gloves on and so you just know what you're getting into with sterilization. Do a quick walkthrough with somebody with their route slips, their x-rays, and the computer program. That'll be really helpful later in the day. With x-rays, is an FMX 4 bite wings and a pano? Is it 18 films? Is it 24 films? Is it even digital? Be very, very flexible with x-rays because you have no clue what kind of sensor you're going to be using or if they even have sensors. You might still be on analog. I would always go through the charts, be it paper charts or digital charts, and make myself a sticky note. Patient's first name, prophy exam x-rays, prophy exam perio chart. This one's getting a valscope, that one's not. This one has a bridge that still needs to be done. Make yourself notes. What does this person need as far as treatment? Do they like a pillow? Do they want to have mint only paste? Do they hate mint? Do they want to be hand scaled? Do they want a Cavitron only? Blah, 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 blah. So you can fit in as quickly as possible with these patients and make them happy. So there's an idea. Sticky notes, amazing stuff. So how do you convince these patients is you've been here for longer than 15 minutes? The hardest part is probably reading the patient. Sometimes I'd walk out into the lobby and I'd say, I'm looking for Anna, or I'm looking for Mrs. So-and-so, or just however the office did it. And the patient would look at you and they go, where's so-and-so? And you're like, oh, well, she's on vacation, so I'm here today. Oh no, I don't see anybody but her or him, and I'm leaving. And they would stand up and they'd walk right out the door, and there's nothing you can do about it. And you're like, okay, guess I've got a free hour to do some charting, or scanning, or, you know, make yourself useful if that happens. Other patients were like, okay, and they kind of, you know, they shake your hand, they kind of give you a chance. And so it was just learning their personalities very, very quickly. And I had patients that were super, super anxious. Some of them, I would put the lead apron on them just to calm them down, and that worked really, really well, or blankets or something. And other people were totally fine. They were like, oh, cool, I hope she's having fun. And if you knew anything about the hygienist, it really helps. So if you know the person's name that you're filling in for, and if you know like where they're at, their kid is sick, or, you know, have a little bit of background, because these people are going to want to know where their favorite person is, because you're not it. So do your best to win them over, but at the same time, keep them calm, tell them, you know what, she'll be back next time. She's sorry she couldn't see you today. You know, even try and give them like a personal message where you just say, you know, she wanted me to tell you she's sorry she missed you today. Really easy to do. It'll make them feel better, and it makes you seem more trustworthy. If they have a sense of humor, you can say stuff like, you know, they'll ask you, how long have you worked here? And you can say, well, about 15 minutes now. And they'll go, which is really fun. Other people, you could say, well, you know what, I've been here a while, because 15 minutes is a while. A while is as long as you want it to be. And then and go right into, and I've been a dental hygienist for 2 years. So even though this is like your first week ever working in the real world, you have had patients for 2 years. So make sure you use that. Know where stuff is in the room. This is super important, because you're not like rummaging through drawers trying to find something. The patients will trust you more if you actually look like you know what you're doing. So again, when you first walk in, make sure you get a good lay of what's going on and figure out where stuff is, not only in the office, but in your room. Where does she keep the toothbrushes? Where are the prophy angles? If you drop that prophy paste, where's another one? Just know so you're not rummaging through drawers and freaking people out. It really helps. Look for any personal notes on the patient. If this hygienist is somebody like me, I try and keep a little note somewhere in either the paper chart or the digital chart of what they did on their last vacation, or whether they like or dislike having a pillow behind their neck, or they really want to have the chair leaned back only 45 degrees, or they want, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So know your patients. If there's anything like that in the chart, it does help. Leave them maybe for the next person. If you have your own office, leave it for a temp, because it really does help. If you have somebody that you know is going to be coming in for this person, and they're going to need special care, put it someplace. I would actually write out a big sheet when I had people temp for me of different patients, and hey, this one's going to need this, and this one's going to need this, and everybody else will be amazing today, but these two are going to be your problem children, or whatever, you know, just so you know. So do that, so when we come in and temp, we know what we're doing. Distract these patients with lots of stories. I'm a storyteller. I'll tell people about my childhood. I'll tell them about how I used to work at summer camp. I tell people about my horrible, horrible ability at sports. I just, whatever I can think of, I try and find common ground with them, and then I go from there, and I try and find some stories somewhere in my background that I can tell them and make them laugh and make them like me. It seems to work pretty well, so give it a shot. And then leave a little note at the end of the day for the hygienist you filled in for. Let her know how the day went. Tell her, you know, thanks for letting me fill in for you. Your patients were amazing. This one said to tell you she missed you. This one told you, you know, said he hopes you feel better, whatever it is. But leave a little note. That goes a long way into getting called back to that office at some point, hopefully, especially if you liked that office. Another thing I would do is once I went home, I would write up a little like 2-sentence summary in my spreadsheet of, did I like this office? Would I work there again? Why or why not? As well as, what I made that day, how many hours I worked, blah, 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 blah. So I had my little spreadsheet going on of what I needed to know. So if I got called back by my temp boss and she goes, hey, I need you to go back to this office, I would quick look at my notes and go, oh, heck no. Or I'd be like, yay, good, I loved them. That would be so much fun. I will totally do that tomorrow. Gives you a good, especially after you've done it for a couple of months, you really get a feel for where you're going to be going and who you're working with. And sometimes you're going to need to remember people's names, so you can put that in your little chart. But just keep yourself organized, and it's fun, it's stressful, but it's definitely an interesting experience and one that I would recommend, especially right out of school. Thanks for watching. So those were my tips on being an awesome dental hygiene temp. Please like and subscribe, and don't forget to keep sweet, keep smiling, keep stepping, and keep flossing.